You know, it's not every day that a body appears out of nowhere in a small rural town with marks all over it and no clear explanation. But it did happen here, and that was just the beginning of a series of strange events, because one of the policemen who attended that crime scene later went on to have an encounter that changed his life forever. And so in this video, we're going to revisit the still unexplained stories of these two men and see if we can figure out what actually happened. And not only that, but later on in this video, I've got a very special giveaway item today that I'm going to be hiding somewhere in the local area for one of you to find. So come along with me and let's see if we can solve this mystery. Now, these two incidents took place in a little town called Todmorden. It's a smallish place in West Yorkshire with a population of around 15,000, and it's very tightly surrounded by hills. The very hills that we're walking up right now. You might even be able to see some of the valley in the background. Todmorden is just below that tree line there. And both of these events took place in 1980. The first one involving a man named Zigmund Adamski. Now, Zygmunt was Polish born but became a British citizen after World War II, and he didn't live in Todmorden. He lived in a village called Tingley, which is 30 or 40 miles from here. So not super far away, but not that close either. And on June 6, as the story goes at least, he left home to buy some potatoes. I'm smiling a bit at that detail because it just sounded a little bit humorous to me. The one item he was said to have left house for was a bag of potatoes. And of the several retellings out there of these two stories, that's one detail that never changes. It's persistent across all of them, which means I guess it must have come from a single source. Now, Zygmunt left home and he wasn't seen or heard from for 5 days, until one morning when his body was discovered here in Todmorden under some strange circumstances. Now, Zygmunt was found face up on a coal heap, on a pile of coal, lying on his back with his face pointing towards the sky, and no real marks of muck or dirt from having presumably climbed atop the coal heap. And the heap itself didn't seem disturbed. It didn't look like it had been climbed on. So a strange start to the story. The police were called, of course, and one of the men who attended that scene was a man named PC Alan Godfrey. Now, he's going to play a big part in this story later on, so make sure you hold on to that name. So an investigation began, and more strange details emerged. There were what appeared to be potential burn marks on the back of Zygmunt's head and his neck, and traces of some kind of substance or ointment that had been applied to them. Samples were taken and sent off to the lab for testing, and they came back inconclusive. They couldn't figure out what it was. The coroner working on this case, a man named James Turnbull, eventually declared an open verdict, which basically means there was not enough evidence to conclude a cause of death. So obviously a lot of questions were left open and peculiar details that nobody could explain. Now, of course, being a small town in the valleys, word got out. The story spread well beyond Todmorden, of course. And understandably, people were curious and trying to figure out what's the real story here, what happened. Some people suspected maybe he was kidnapped and tortured, which I guess could explain the marks on his body. That didn't really match with any of the accounts from his family and friends, who described him as a respectable family man with no enemies. But then I guess, you know, people do hold secrets, sometimes very big ones. Others suggested maybe there were some adulterous details to this whole plot, which I guess could explain why he was in a different town away from home, but definitely doesn't explain his death and the circumstances and the details. So I'm not too sure about that either. Maybe a connection to his Polish past? I really don't know. But the case went on to remain unsolved, with even the coroner saying that it was one of the strangest cases he'd ever come across in 25 years of work. But it wasn't the end of the unusual goings-on here in Todmorden, because things are about to get even stranger. You can get a bit of a feel for the landscape around here. This is actually a question that frequently comes up in my videos, which is, where are all the trees? And in the cases where we can see some, why are they just in such small patches? Well, there are answers to these questions, which I'll address in a later video only because it's going to need a bit of time. And there are a lot of false truths about England's trees out there that we need to dispel at some point. Now, before we move on to part 2 of our story, let's just get through to this next field. I can check our route, show you where we're heading, and then I can tell you what happened next. Okay, quick change of layers. I can't seem to get my body temperature right today. So let me show you the route I've planned. This is actually the first time I've ever gone to the effort of planning a custom route. Normally, I'll turn up, I'll have a rough idea of where we're going to go, or there's some well-known paths. But for this video, I just wanted to get a trail that goes around the hilltops of Todmorden. And I couldn't really find one. I looked on all trails, OS maps, and didn't really see anything. So I've actually splashed out. I know I'm from Yorkshire, but I've paid for something. I bought 1 month of premium OS maps. Not sponsored, by the way. I just always like to clear that up. But I did it so that I could plot a custom path route that would snap to all the footpaths and rights of way. So I started here in Todmorden and walked up the hills, started filming about here. This is where we are now. And we're kind of just going to snake around. And I guess at the same time we can see what the OS Maps app is like. I may even do a full review of the app at some point. If anyone's interested, let me know. Wait, I'm already lost. The one day I've got a proper route. According to this, there's a footpath right here. Okay, this looks kind of right. Doesn't look that much like a path, but it is, at least according to OS Maps. So I guess we're just going to have to rely on GPS a fair bit in this trip. So let's see what happens. There is a bit of an atmosphere, a bit of a vibe around here. So now that we're kind of back on track, let's carry on with our story. Now, can you remember the name of our policeman friend from earlier on in this tale? It was PC Alan Godfrey. Now, if you're not from the UK, PC stands for Police Constable, and it's one of 15 ranks within the UK Police. Now, a few months after Alan attended the scene where Zigmund was found, he was several days into a series of night shifts. And one morning in November of 1980, he was driving back in towards Todmorden. And as he was making his way along, he saw something strange in the road. From his own personal account, he said that at first, he thought maybe it was an upturned double-decker bus. So he stopped his car and he started heading forward to find out. And as he got closer, he realised it wasn't a bus. It was what he would later go on to describe in his own words as a UFO. Now, for any of you thinking, oh God, not an alien story, don't panic, because I'm actually counting on your input in this particular one. Now, what Alan described seeing that time was a floating object, large in size, with windows, kind of diamond-shaped, and spinning anti-clockwise. And as he was trying to figure out what was going on, he found himself 15 minutes later with no real recollection of how that time had passed. Not only that, but he later discovered that he had an unexplained rip, a tear in his boot. I think we're heading down this way. There is a very agitated dog at one of the farmhouses down there. Alan also said that he did try to radio his colleagues at the time, but his radio wasn't working. And after this happened, he carried on, continued where he was going. Okay. This is one of those paths or right of way that just feels weird. Even though there's a sign on that post, it's clearly not very often travelled. So I'm going to be double checking my coordinates fairly frequently. I hope you don't mind. Now, Alan was, by all accounts, a very well respected professional member of the police. He's previously received commendments for his investigative work, and so you could almost say it was out of character even for him to see something that he might describe in this way. And what is this route? I mean, maybe this was a path hundreds of years ago. Or maybe that's exaggerating. Let's try and get some higher ground. It's like a really old road. It just hasn't been used for who knows how long. So as time went on, it transpired that Alan wasn't the only one to see something strange that day. A local caretaker reported seeing some kind of ball of light floating into Todmorden, and even 3 of his colleagues described some kind of blue-white ball of light hovering on the hills. So clearly something happened. Something. I wonder what this was. 4 posts, a little fenced off area, but there's a load of stone inside it. Maybe it's drainage under there. You know, I'd almost forgotten I need to look for a place to hide this book, because the best hiding spot is probably going to be somewhere remote where I can hide it within some rubble, some stone. Let's keep looking. And now again, naturally, given where we are, this story spread pretty fast and pretty far. Now this was 1980 as well. The 70s and 80s were a big time for recorded numbers of UFO incidents, unexplainable objects, and especially around here. So much so, in fact, that at least going by the reported incidences, residents or people in this local area were on paper 12 times more likely to see something, some kind of UFO, than anyone anywhere else in the country. Okay, so am I supposed to be on that side? Oh no. Oh. We'll quickly head around there. I don't want to be climbing over anybody's walls, especially not these old ones when they're quite susceptible to falling. I've never seen this pin system for a gate before. So we've got to lift that on and pop the pin through. All right. Where on earth are we? Now, I'm not seeing any strange lights. I mean, I suppose we'd have to be here at 5 in the morning, 3 in the morning. Now, a lot like Zigmund's story, Alan's experience never really got at least a full explanation that satisfied everybody. This is a man who never had experiences like this before, but ever since it happened, he's stuck by it. And so I'm certainly not going to come out and dispute his personal experience, but there must be more we can find to tie all of this together, surely. Now, of course, also like with Zigmund's story, people started to try and come up with explanations. People on all sides, those who firmly believe this was some life form from somewhere else, not this planet. And of course, those on the other side who think there's some kind of scientific explanation. With the typical weather conditions here around these hills and the thick fog described that day, some people thought maybe it was some kind of extreme weather event. Something rare like ball lightning, something like this. The damp, hilly conditions around here, apparently excellent fertile ground for the growth of certain kind of funky mushroom. I'm not, for the record, suggesting that anybody involved in this story was under the influence of psychedelics at the time these experiences took place. Just trying to paint a picture of the kind of landscape we're in. And that's pretty much all I can tell you about these 2 oddly connected incidences. Now, while you're putting the pieces together and coming to a conclusion, I'm going to tell you about this special giveaway item that I've got and try and find somewhere to hide it as well. How do we... Is it just a knot? There we go. Please leave gate fastened tight. I'm loving the variety of the makeshift gates and locks. Now, this book, and the reason it's so special, some years after Alan's experience, he went on to write a book about what happened. And not only have I got a copy of this book, but I've got a signed copy by the man himself. Once again, not a sponsorship. I've not been paid by Alan to promote his book. But I do want to give him a thank you for signing it. Sorry, I'm kind of lost here. I think I've picked some routes here that are not very well travelled these days, but I can see a gate at least, which I think leads out of the field, and I'm very pleased that at least so far there's been no cows. A knot and a hook and an engraving here. Oh, wait. Now, probably a coincidence, but that's kind of strange. The same year that both of these stories happened. Weird. What was going on around here in 1980? Okay, there we go. Nice and tight. Hooks on. I'm starting to feel like a farm animal myself. All these mazes I'm having to go through. What on earth? Oh, not again. I think I'm in the sheep pen. Okay, I'm just going to climb this one out. Now that is a crazy style. One of the difficulties with a lot of these routes is that they've been here for a long time. And so after a while, they start to be kind of disguised, blending in to the wildlife. Is this a warning for any misbehaving sheep? This is what will happen. So I think we're just having to pretty much cut through these sheep and go down there. Okay. I am lost. Even OS Maps could not save somebody like me. This is why I shouldn't be allowed out on my own. We are on the Todmorden Centenary Way. It's done, it's hidden. I've picked this spot because all I had to do was just lift this, pop the buck underneath, and then put a few extra stones at the side. So I've not dismantled anything. You don't need to dismantle anything to find it. Hopefully we can get signal and I can give you the location. Sparks, I like it. Sparks, cucumber, lunching. If you pop those words into what 3 words, you'll get this square. And what you're looking for is just before the wall ends on your right hand side is this stone here. It's kind of diagonal shaped, triangular on the top and the bottom. Please do be careful because this is somebody's land, somebody's wall. Take off the spare rocks that I found on the floor, lift that one, and the book is yours. Good luck. Now that we're coming back down into the valley, that's going to be the end of the story for today. A little bit further down this path, I'm going to be making my way onto the main road essentially and just walking back to the centre of Todmorden and then heading home. If you've got any ideas that might help us explain what happened to Zigmund or PC Alan Godfrey, do let us know in the comments. And if you'd like me to come back here another time to show you what that thing is, probably a bit far away for this camera, but let me know and we can come back to these hills again. So thank you so much for watching. Massive thank you to everyone who's been supporting the channel recently, watching, commenting, liking, sharing, subscribing, everything. I want to give an extra special thank you to everyone who's gifted in the comments recently as well, and all the members, because all of your contributions are what goes towards purchasing these books and all the giveaway items and other little things needed to make these videos. So thank you so much for your support. Hopefully you've enjoyed this one, and fingers crossed, I'll see you next time.